I would like to now discuss kids in cages. One of the arguments that Biden surrogates like Cenk Uygur make is that Biden is the morally superior candidate. There's also an element of harm reduction. Although left-wingers may not agree with Biden from an ideological standpoint, Trump is so despicable, so transparent in his hatred for racial and ethnic minorities, that subbing in Biden automatically makes these groups safer. For that reason alone, we, the left, not the establishment Democrats, should put aside our policy agenda and just fall in line. Donald Trump's child separation policy and imprisonment of migrant children is the scandal that stands out for many of us as the single most egregious thing he has done in office, although his handling of the pandemic has probably surpassed that. But nevertheless, ripping children and babies out of their parents' arms, detaining them for months in horrific conditions, trafficking the children all over the country to different facilities, building tent cities on military bases in the desert. It all seems so un-American. I remember people on MSNBC and CNN saying, "We're better than this. This is not who we are." The scandal lasted, I think, for about 2 months, which is a pretty long shelf life for a scandal in the Trump era. Many of them come and go within a matter of days. But this time, Trump went too far. Stealing children and putting them in cages was what finally turned his own supporters against him and united the whole country, leading to his swift removal from office. I'm kidding. His supporters came for the white nationalism. They're staying for the white nationalism. And everyone else who doesn't like Trump, left, right, center, was appropriately outraged for a while, and then the feeling dissipated, like it always does with Trump scandals, and we moved on to the next one. But the subject does still come up from time to time. Biden people will cite it as one of the reasons why everyone has to fall in line and vote for him. It came up in one of those Lincoln Project ads in a montage of all the horrible things that Trump has done. But the outrage is gone. I don't doubt that it was genuine in the moment. It was a visceral reaction to hearing that children and babies were being ripped out of their parents' arms and put in cages. But now its only utility is as a talking point to be flung back at Bernie supporters. How dare we not vote for Biden? Look at what Trump did. He attempted an ethnic cleansing of America. He built internment camps for children. He's got ICE rounding up undocumented immigrants and deporting them. This is not who we are. And Bernie supporters are willing to risk 4 more years of that to teach the Democrats a lesson about nominating conservatives like Joe Biden? How dare we? Now, I'm going to say something that's going to sound really bad, but I will say it so you don't have to. I'll be the bad guy. We'll take that risk. We are not voting for Joe Biden. If that means 4 more years of Trump and more kids in cages, then so be it. If it's so important to normie Democrats that migrant children no longer be put in cages, then they're going to have to join us in demanding that Biden drop out and Bernie is the nominee. The kids in cages have been reduced to a talking point that the Democrats are using to shame people into voting for Biden. If the Democrats get to use kids in cages as a talking point, then so do we. We're not playing by the rules of civility while the Democrats get to do whatever they want. That's not how it works anymore. It's a pretty low-risk move anyway, because Biden was always probably going to lose. He's a terrible candidate, and he's in cognitive decline. But the Democrats were willing to risk that because it was more important to defeat Bernie in the primary than Trump in the general election. If they wanted to all but guarantee that Trump would never put kids in cages again, they would have nominated a more electable candidate like Bernie Sanders. In fact, if Democrats actually cared about protecting migrant children, Trump would have been removed from office a long time ago. Since I'm sure you think this issue is like super important, let me ask you something. When was the scandal? Do you even remember? How many kids and babies were taken? Were they all given back? Are they still here? Were they deported? For that matter, why were they here? Where did they come from? Can you answer any of these questions off the top of your head? If this was such a big deal, why did the story fade from the news by as I recall, mid-July 2018. Why didn't the Democrats, who we're told are the good guys, make a bigger deal about it? Why didn't they turn the whole country against Trump and force him to resign or force the Republican-controlled Congress to remove him? I mean, it seems like the children were kidnapped. That's a felony. They were targeted because of their racial identity. That sounds like a hate crime. The kids were trafficked all over the country, neglected, physically abused, verbally abused, sexually abused. I remember people on the news characterizing the treatment as torture and a crime against humanity. What I don't remember anyone saying is, this is disqualifying. It is criminal. Trump's gotta go, now. Mike Pence, too, and any other member of the executive branch who participated in these atrocities. They'll be at the mercy of, I guess, Paul Ryan's Justice Department, because it was 2018. But I don't remember any of that happening. I remember wall-to-wall coverage on MSNBC and CNN. I remember senators trying to get into the detention centers to observe the children and being turned away. I remember cable news hosts journeying to the Southwest to do their shows from in front of the buildings where the children were imprisoned. I remember Joy Reid describing her experience touring one of the facilities with other members of the press. They were told to smile at the children because there wasn't a lot of smiling there. I also remember the First Lady, an illegal immigrant herself, being trotted out to Texas as a publicity stunt to prove that the children were very happy in their kiddie prison, and she wore that disgusting jacket that said she didn't care. Remember how outraged you were about that jacket? I also remember footage of adolescent girls being marched through the streets of New York City under cover of darkness, and stories from people on flights with teenagers in the custody of the government. And then the airlines had to tell Trump, can you stop using our flights to traffic migrant children? I remember news breaking that a facility was being opened for babies who had been taken from their parents. I remember Stephanie Ruhle and Rachel Maddow fighting back tears on live television. But what I do not remember is anyone saying, this is disqualifying for Trump. He should not and cannot be president any longer. What he did is unacceptable. It is grounds for removal from office. As far as I know, no one ever said that, in the media or in Congress. No Republicans, no Democrats. Now you could say, well, but Republicans controlled Congress at the time. The party had become a cult devoted to Trump. Okay, it was just the Democrats who were really outraged about what happened. So then after their triumph in the 2018 midterms, they had a mandate from the people to really start bringing the hammer down on the Trump administration, right? The new Congress was sworn in on January 3rd, 2019. They had their ceremonies and celebrations in the morning, and then that afternoon, Nancy Pelosi was like, okay gang, we had our little celebration this afternoon, but it's time to start impeachment proceedings because Trump put kids in cages and we cannot allow him to get away with that a moment longer. What he did is unacceptable and unforgivable. I'm a Catholic. Catholics never mistreat children or people of color all over the world. We certainly never committed any genocides in California, where my district is. We just won't stand for that sort of thing here in the United States. And if Republicans in the Senate protect their guy instead of doing the right thing, they're not getting reelected. The American people won't stand for Republicans putting party before country. You remember Nancy's big speech, right? It was electrifying. The Republicans in the Senate were like, yeah, that's it, we're done with Trump. And then Congress removed him from office. I'm kidding, none of that happened. The Democrats on the House Oversight Committee did finally get around to having a hearing on the matter in July of 2019, after a mere 6 months on the job. But they really thought they were doing something with that hearing. They hyped it up in 2 different tweets. They were like, we're going to get to the bottom of this whole child separation thing. We've got people coming in from the Trump administration, and we're going to grill them because Republicans are bad and Democrats are good. In those tweets, the Democrats included photographs of migrant children in cages, just to remind people of what Trump did. But the problem with those photographs is that they were taken in 2014. Donald Trump wasn't president in 2014. Barack Obama was. along with his trusty sidekick, Joe Biden. But wait, Obama didn't put kids in cages. He's the good guy. Trump is bad. Well, it happened. There's photographic evidence. Officials from the Biden-Obama administration admit that it happened. This is yet another example of how weak and sort of non-existent the left is. I could understand the Republicans and Democrats not caring about this, but you'd think that the left would make a bigger deal about it. I had never heard about Obama putting kids in cages until earlier this year, and that's only because Biden just happened to be running for president and everyone was trashing him on the left. But it turns out there's a whole hidden history of immigration policies during the Obama presidency, and it's not pretty. Could this be used to turn normie Democrats against Biden? I doubt it, because issues don't matter to these people. I think if you told them that Biden put kids in cages, the Democrats' first instinct would be to just not believe you. Obama and Biden may not be popular on the left, but center-right people have fond memories of the Obama years. Even if you confronted them with evidence and they begrudgingly admitted that yes, Biden did put kids in cages, I think they would probably just dismiss it and say, so what? Trump did it worse. There's a term that's been making the rounds to describe this phenomenon of Democrats really embarrassing themselves to defend Biden at all costs. It's blue MAGA. I think it's accurate. I don't know if it's necessarily the best thing to call a Democrat, because it will probably just make them get defensive and double down on Biden even harder. But then again, we're trying to make a lot of noise here. The Biden people are willing to defend the indefensible. It's downright Trumpian, and we shouldn't let them get away with that. And it's not just normie Democrats who are showing that blue MAGA spirit. People on the left are doing it too. Cenk Uygur has been making a fool of himself for months, calling Biden the morally superior candidate. Sam Seder is also a big Biden supporter. There's even a Majority Report video where the subject of immigration comes up. It's called Reasons to Vote Joe Biden 2020. It's from April 12th of this year. You can watch it and give it a thumbs down like I did, or don't watch it so it doesn't get the views. But anyway, Sam is talking to an immigration lawyer, and they're doing the routine where they're like, yeah, Biden's not like the best guy, he's not the candidate we prefer, but he would still be less bad than Trump. And then the lawyer is like, there are millions of people, they're real people, this isn't a game, it's not some sort of imaginary thing, who, even in light of the failures on immigration of the Obama administration, will be harmed if Trump is reelected. And here's Sam's response. Quote, "You're in the best position to assess that too, because you were an immigration lawyer during those years, and obviously with tremendous critique of Obama during those years, but you're seeing that it's worse." End quote. So immigration policies weren't good under Obama, but they've gotten worse under Trump, I think, is what Sam and his esteemed caller are saying. The line about, like, you're seeing that it's worse may not seem like anything, but it's really stuck with me since April. I mean, I don't want to put words in Sam's mouth, but I'm going to do it anyway. It sounded to me like what he was saying was, yeah, Obama did it too, but, like, Trump did it worse. Is that now the standard for the left? As long as Trump did a worse version of it, we're willing to overlook what Democrats did? Like, really? I have to say I disagree. I don't think it's relevant what Trump did, actually. What the Biden-Obamas did was wrong in and of itself. You put any number of migrant children in cages, it's unacceptable. It should be disqualifying for Biden. And what Trump did is also unacceptable. He should have been removed from office 2 years ago. And what the hell happened to Sam Seder? What a dick. You're seeing that it's worse. What the fuck does that mean? I highly recommend, if you haven't done so already, taking a look at the photographs of Obama's kids in cages. They're on the internet. Maybe Sam can take a look at them too. Let me tell you what I see in those photographs. I see children, who are not white, lined up in rows out inside of chain link cages, or in rooms that look like interrogation rooms in a police department, sleeping on the floor. Some children are sleeping on pads. Some appear to be sleeping directly on the floor. Some are sleeping under space blankets. Some have blankets that say American Red Cross. I would love to know the story behind those blankets. Did the Red Cross have to airlift them in on a pallet? Like the United States is some third world country, they can't provide blankets for children? This is the fucking United States of America. What Biden and Obama did to those children is an atrocity. It's not something to be casually dismissed by Joe Biden apologists like Sam Cedar, because, Trump did it worse. We all know what Trump did. It was on the news. But shame on the so-called progressive media for giving Biden and Obama a pass, at the time and now. And Sam Cedar can go fuck himself. Even when people are willing to admit that, yes, Biden put kids in cages, they come back with, the child separation policy is uniquely Trumpian, uniquely horrifying. Obama's kids in cages were unaccompanied minors. They didn't come here with their parents. But if you start looking into the Obama years a little more closely, there's more nuance to the child separation matter than you might think. Obama deported over 3 million undocumented immigrants. Some percentage of them had children in the United States, so they got separated. And we know that ICE agents couldn't care less if children are present when adults are being taken into custody. Furthermore, Obama's choice to detain families together rather than separating them upon arrival shouldn't be praised for its humaneness either. Conditions in Obama's family detention centers, as they were known, were horrific. Some of the facilities were even privately run, which is sketchy as fuck. Administration officials have admitted in the years since that the terrible conditions imposed on the families, as well as the conditions in the facilities where the unaccompanied minors were warehoused, were meant to serve as a deterrent to people in Latin America who were considering making the journey to the United States. That means that the inhumane conditions were intentional. Children and families were subjected to those traumatic experiences on purpose to send a message to would-be migrants. Don't come here. We're not going to treat you well if you do. Our country's full. Does that sound familiar? It doesn't matter if we're talking about child separation or family detention centers, nor does it matter which administration did it. The purpose was the same: inflict cruelty on immigrants to deter more immigrants. I would say that the difference is that Biden and Obama got a pass, but of course, in terms of job security and criminal exposure, so did Trump. This should be a stain on Biden and Obama's already dubious legacy, and it should be disqualifying for Biden to become president. But we have to make it so. Normie Democrats and party leadership don't really care about kids in cages and babies, regardless of which administration did it. Trump's kids in cages are just a talking point. Biden putting kids in cages either never happened or just isn't a big deal, because Trump did it worse. We can try to get through to the normie Democrats, either by appealing to their sense of humanity, if they have any, or by shaming them. But the Blue MAGA cult is strong. However, our own people who are defending Biden are going to have to defend him harder. They need to feel shame when they say, I'm supporting Biden because I want to do harm reduction. Trump is really mean to immigrants, and Biden will be nicer. They don't get to act like they're choosing the morally superior candidate anymore. They should be ashamed of themselves for minimizing what Biden did as vice president. They need to be confronted with reality, which is that telling people to vote for Biden is helping elect someone we all know has the capacity to put kids in cages. He's already done it, and assholes like Sam Cedar are willing to risk the possibility that he will do it again. When they say that he is less bad than Trump, they are drastically underestimating Biden's cruelty and patting themselves on the back for helping immigrants. It's bullshit. Biden himself better not get a pass on this either. He's already been allowed to lie about it on the debate stage. Just last week, Michelle Obama was given airtime at the DNC to create a fantasy world in which Trump put kids in cages and her husband and Joe Biden didn't. I know I said issues don't matter, but I changed my mind. Biden made the tactical decision to say to voters that he and Obama are one and the same, There's no plausible deniability there. Biden gets to take credit for killing Osama bin Laden and opening up relations with Cuba and Iran, and he is also responsible for putting kids in cages, interning entire families, and deporting 3 million people, which likely led to children being separated from their parents. We do have a bit of moral high ground here, since our candidate is the only one who hasn't put kids in cages. That's sort of another reason why causing Biden to lose is a low-risk move. If Biden becomes president, no one can guarantee that he won't put kids in cages again. Immigrants need to be protected from Biden too. Whether it's Biden or Trump, the possibility will exist that migrant kids will end up in cages. The better option is if neither of them is president. If normie Democrats actually care about keeping kids out of cages and babies, then they will join us on the left in demanding that Joe Biden drop out and be replaced with Bernie Sanders. And then in November, they will vote enthusiastically for Bernie with the peace of mind that once he is sworn in next January as the 46th President of the United States, that will be the end of migrant kids in cages. If you think that Biden is good enough, because Trump did it worse, then you don't really care about the kids, and you're an awful human being.